Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. We are here live at the Chantilly, Virginia studios at Kardec Radio. And we are very, very, very happy because we're going to talk about the purpose of life, love. It's actually the latest book by Dr. Stephen Post, is Ultimate Reality, Unlimited Love. It's actually a book that is beyond just this romantic love that people talk about. It's love to the fullest, to the core of itself. Love through the eyes of John Templeton, Sir John Templeton, Dr. Post, their collaboration, and what they've created together, the research about love and much more, the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. We're going to learn about how minds that were quite unique and are quite unique on the earth are thinking through what drives life, love, and who doesn't want to feel it. Science has already shown to us that we can be better, we can heal faster when we feel love and we feel loved. So what do we need to know about it? What is there that science is telling us that can create greater harmony? Is it possible that love is going to be the ultimate tool to end religious conflicts? Is it possible to keep affirming ourselves on a daily basis on the power of love? These are many questions will be answered here because Dr. Post is here with us. He's going to discuss this book, the behind the scenes, the history, the legacy of the institute he created, the collaboration and friendship with Sir John Templeton, and much, much more. You know, before we open the line to talk to Dr. Post, we'd like to remind you that at any point, if you want to send your questions through our email, just go to kardec@kardecradio.com or you go to the Blog Talk Radio chat room at Kardec Radio and talk to us directly. Of course, if you are not shy, you can always call our toll-free number, 858-769-4705. We'd like to remind you that there is a screening process, and if by any chance you have a question, you just press 1, and we are going to screen you, ask what you want to ask, and of course, if many people are asking the same question, we're going to relay one summarized question to Dr. Post. Those who had already sent emails, we will read some of them here to Dr. Post as well. Now, if you want to know more about Dr. Post and the book, go to his website, StephenGPost.com. And, of course, if you have any other question, just call us. Toll-free number, 858-769-4705. Let me share with you, wherever you are in the world, remember, you can listen to Kardec Radio on demand or live. If you go on demand, you can listen at TuneIn Radio, you can listen it through iTunes, you can listen through our website, kardecradio.org, or go to blogtalkradio.com. It's very, very easy and simple and straightforward. Now, for those who are reading the Spiritist Magazine, remember, the SpiritistMagazine.com, the previous issue we published had Dr. Post at the very cover, talking about beautiful, beautiful aspects of life regarding consciousness. And if you want to read the magazine, it's simple. We have 3 possible ways. You can read it free online. Just go to thespiritistmagazine.com. There you're going to find an icon to read it digitally or the PDF. If you want to have your own copy of the magazine, you just go to our website. On the right top hand side of the website, you're going to find a link to our partner, HP Meg Cloud. Right there, you can order your magazine, and it's going to be delivered to your door. And for those who are asking us about Divaldo Franco is still in Europe in a journey of more than 35 days in more than 12 countries in 26 cities. And this is the very last weekend he's going to be in Europe. And if you want to know more about his itinerary, just go to thespiritistmagazine.com. At the very latest issue of the magazine, we share with you his European tour and where he is in this very weekend. Something not to miss. And remember, in March, Dr. Post and Divaldo Franco were together in D.C. in a beautiful, memorable event where Dr. Post was awarded the PCNU Award. And it was beautiful, inspirational, and I think a Spiritist Network will soon be able to release the video clip so you can get a hold about how it was and how beautiful and how much Dr. Post really enlightened minds, and people were so inspired that we had many people sharing with us stories about how they wanted to change their lives and become more charitable, volunteer more often at their neighborhoods, thanks to Dr. Post and how he inspired many, many people. Right now, I would like to share with you a message that's going to kickstart the program today. It's going to set the tone. We're going to talk about love, and love is everything is in the air. Yes, because we are here on air. And it's a message that was brought through the mediumship of Chico Xavier. And you can find this message either in the book or CD, Enlightening Messages, published by the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Right after this message in the break, Dr. Post with us.
Wait and love always. Much affliction will be cut at the root if you learn how to smile in silence. Many grudges will be forgotten if you forgive the inequity you implore for the peace of the Lord. But the Lord equally awaits your participation in the peace of others. Reflect on the needs of your brother before you criticize his thoughtless deeds. Oftentimes, the aggressiveness with which he hurts you is only his anguish, and the rude word which he uses to return your care is nothing but the wound in his heart poisoning his mouth. Aid 1,000 times before you disapprove only once. The swamp admits ailing currents, for it did not find hands to dry it out. And the desert brings on thirst and suffering, for it did not receive the morning dew. Allow mercy to develop into silent help in your heart, so that pain may fade away. Do not fuel the fire of evil with the dry log of irritation and hate. Wait and love always. In silence, the prune tree multiplies its own fruits, and the sky, overtaken by the nocturnal shadows, reveals the glory of the stars. Think of Christ, our silent friend. Without demands or self-acclaim, he wrote the immortal poems of forgiveness and love, hope and happiness in the heart of the earth. Let's make him our model in our daily struggles, and by tolerating and helping today in this short human existence, we will reap tomorrow the blessings of the silent light, which will show us the ways to eternal life.
We will return to our program after these messages. Want to learn more about the ins and outs of mediumship? The book In the Realms of Mediumship by the spirit doctor André Louise through the medium Chico Xavier analyzes the various aspects of mediumistic communication and mediumship. He also praises the efforts of mediums who are faithful to the spiritual mandate they received before they reincarnated, warning them about the risks of badly practiced exchanges between the two worlds. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Study Spiritism online at eSpiritism. eSpiritism is an online tool to promote the study and practice of Spiritism while contributing to the preparation of Spiritist practitioners. For full access to courses, go to www.e-spiritism.org.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Emmanuel's Novels. The reputable mentor, Emmanuel, wrote a 5-book series of Spiritist novels that can truly transform your life. Starting with 2,000 Years Ago, Emmanuel delights our minds with the true account of characters that are so similar to each of us. Discover yourself in Emmanuel's novels and live better. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com. And now we return to our program.
We are here, dear listener, to talk about Is Ultimate Reality Unlimited Love? This is actually the title of Dr. Stephen Post's latest book. He talks about so many things, and above all and everything else, the behind the scenes of the making of an institute that has been changing how science views love, the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, which began as a collaboration of Dr. Post and Sir John Templeton. We have a lot to learn, something that is unbelievable. I just want to open with what Professor Menji, the New York Times best-selling author of Allah, Liberty, and Love and founder of the Moral Courage Project, wrote about it. What is to be a material success? By any standard, Sir John Templeton embodied the answer. But he also epitomized metaphysical success. In this unprecedented book, Stephen Post draws on the private words and personal practices of a business icon whose virtues transcend time. What is it to leave a legacy in more ways than one? Dr. Post is here with us. Dr. Post, thank you so much for being with us once again at Kardec Radio.
Hi, Vanessa, and hi to all of your listeners. It's always a delight for me, a high point of the month or the year, to be in touch with you.
Thank you, Dr. Post. And this book, as Professor Menji just said, it's something really to read on. And he asks, what is it to leave a legacy in more ways than one? So why writing this book at this point? What did you want to tell the reader about the Dr. Sir John Templeton?
I had known Sir John Templeton for something like 15 years before he passed away in the summer of 2008. He was a world-famous investor, and he was known all around the globe for his honesty and his integrity and his character as a businessman. But what people don't know is that he really did feel that this deep, unlimited, unconditional, accepting love that we talk about in spiritual traditions and try to practice as best we can with help from the Lord, he felt that the deepest side of this was that, in fact, the energy of love may even underlie all of reality, that in the beginning, before there was matter, before there was energy, there was divine consciousness, there was infinite divine mind, and from that creative, loving mind, everything that exists came into being and still is sustained in its existence by that constant energy of divine love and mind. So that is the core of all of the great mystical traditions, and it shaped the lives of all the great spiritual geniuses of all time. And Sir John really pushed me. So when he was dying, about 2 weeks before he died, he mentioned to his son that there was a book he wanted to write, but he wasn't exactly in a position to write it because he was dying. So he asked through his son that if I would consider writing it, and he gave it a title, and the title is the one that you read, is Ultimate Reality, Unlimited Love, ? And I took about 3 years before I decided to write it. So in the summer of 2011, I called Sir John's son, and I told him that I would go ahead with this. And so it's a work of love. It's not something that I wrote because I needed to write another book, but it's a work of love for Sir John. And also, it's a recognition that he was always, even when he was dying, he was wanting to push me to think beyond love in just humanistic terms, but really, truly in metaphysical terms.
It's amazing because in your letters at the end of the book, the letters between the two of you, it's fascinating. He was a great mind. He trying to understand, as he says, love beyond, as he says, love which does not originate entirely with humans. So he really wanted to go to the driving force of the world.
He sure did. And so I was at that time I was in Cleveland. I was working at the medical school at Case Western, and that was about 2001. Sir John would fax me from Nassau, and he wanted to start an institute for research on unlimited love. And the website for that is just unlimitedloveinstitute.com, and it's got a lot of material on the book, Is Ultimate Reality Unlimited Love? So, we were funding research in great universities from, Yale and Princeton to Stanford and whatever, all around the country. But Sir John, I think, was a little dissatisfied. So he wrote me some of those letters, and he said, "Look, it's great that you're studying human compassion and human love and all these kinds of good things, altruism and whatever. But then he would say, why don't you spend at least a third of the money in this grant, which was, quite a few $1 million, not to study mere human love, but to study the love that made humans, that preceded, as you can see in those letters, the Big Bang, that is beyond time and space. In other words, he wanted to figure out ways to study the divine love that underlies everything in the universe, including the thermodynamic constants of the universe.
It's unbelievable. And how did it go when he suggested that? Was it possible to create projects towards it?
Yeah, it was, but he was challenging me to go beyond my comfort zones. It's easy to study human empathy and affection and love and altruism and heroism and all of that, but he wanted something more. So eventually we did do a major study that cost the whole project was well over $1 million, to do a survey of adult Americans looking at their experiences of divine love, however they define it. Have they had this feeling of a divine presence, a warm, loving, divine presence, almost invading their consciousness, if you will, at some point in their lives? And it turns out that about 83% of American adults have had that experience at least once in their lives. And about 40% of Americans have had it quite frequently. There is a group of about 14% of Americans who say that they feel that way almost all the time. And then we asked if it increased their ability to love their neighbor, to do unto others. Did it contribute to emotional healing? And it turns out that even though it's a fairly secular world that we live in, and we hear a whole lot from the neo-atheists, the bottom line is that out there on Route 80, I like to say, out there on Route 80, God and love are alive and well.
But what is interesting here is I kept wondering, like, what happened to Sir John Templeton that made him be so interested in these very questions regarding love and unlimited love? Who was he? For the listener who had no idea about who he is, I know in your book, especially on page 243, you talk a little bit about who he was, etc. But for those who are listening to us, who was John Templeton, and why do you think his life drove him to these very core questions in life?
He grew up in rural Tennessee, in a place called Franklin County, and he grew up basically, in the early 1920s. He was an adolescent going to high school and the like. He was born and raised as a Presbyterian. He went to the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Winchester, Tennessee. He had a mom, a wonderful mother, who started receiving by mail a little monthly pamphlet called The Daily Word, which probably some of your listeners have heard of. It comes from the Unity School of Christianity in Missouri, and it gives you a little statement, a little affirmation, like an attitude of gratitude brings blessings, and then under it are some passages from world scriptures and world theologies about this, and you just kind of pause and dwell on this, and then that's a good way to start your day. Well, this was all a movement, the Unity School of Christianity, that was founded by a man named Charles Fillmore, and he was very influenced by Emerson's idea of the oversoul, by the Vedic scriptures, the Upanishads. He was a real mystical person, and Sir John would listen to his radio broadcasts Sir John often talked about Charles Fillmore as his spiritual father in a way. So while Sir John was on the one hand, kind of a classical Presbyterian, he was on the other hand really engaged with these ideas of depth and ultimate reality, which came to him through this particular way, and he just all of his life he was engaging with physicists and cosmologists and quantum physics people, Nobel Prize laureates, and all the like, hoping that there would come a time, maybe not now, maybe even not in 100 years, but eventually when the very finest science, especially in the area of physics and cosmology, would come to some rapprochement, some sense of agreement with the great mystical insight that the very ground of all of being is this divine matrix of perfect, pure, unlimited love.
So here we can say, when he talks about unlimited love, as I read in one of the letters to you, he says, a complete definition of unlimited love is not possible by humans because perceptive abilities of humans are so limited. Instead, we can research possible pathways toward unlimited love. It's so, in a way, it sounds paradoxical because we cannot comprehend it to the fullest, but at the same time, tangentially, we can probably approach it through research mechanisms. What would you like to share with us in that regard, Dr. Post?
Well, Sir John once wrote a little booklet called The Story of a Clam, and he basically said that human beings have no more knowledge, ultimate knowledge of the divine, than a clam has ultimate knowledge of the ocean.
Wow, that's wisdom. Wow.
And this is the core idea of his theology, which he called humility theology. Mm-hmm. And basically, it was about how little we know and how arrogant we get, and we even get into conflicts, and we ignore or we harm people who don't believe quite as we believe, and we actually all are living in ignorance. But he did also feel that the spiritual mind, as well as the rational mind, could make some degree of progress, and he believed that there would come a time when we would not perhaps prove that unlimited love is the ultimate reality, but it would become as plausible and seriously considered an option as the alternatives, string theory and theoretical physics and whatever. Mm-hmm. And a lot of physics does really support these kinds of views. I mean, before the Big Bang theory came along, people felt that somehow the universe was just eternal. But after the Big Bang, it was mm-hmm. clear that the universe had a start, and that even time and space are just the products of that single event. And before that event, where did it come from? Well, that's where ideas about the Godhead and infinite mind come into play. So there's something that's deep and profound about the origins of the universe, and I think that Sir John felt that we would eventually come to realize that the idea of a divine mind is to be taken with utmost seriousness, because it makes sense. It actually makes a lot of sense. And mm-hmm. If you think about the purpose of our lives, this was the big thing that Sir John talked about too. That divine consciousness is creative love in its essence, and it wants to extend itself in creative love through us. And so Sir John believed that each of us has a small drop of the divine ocean of that infinite mind within us, and that if we act in love and creativity, that we are in fact the extensions of divine purpose.
When you were talking about the spiritual mind and the rational mind, there are chapters in the book that develop this idea. What are their definitions per se, so we can better understand?
Well, the rational mind is the mind that we have to discipline. We go to school. We study logic. We apply our rational capacities to solve problems. But there's another mind, the spiritual mind. Some great scientists, by the way, like Michael Faraday, who discovered everything there is to know pretty much about electromagnetic fields, he claimed that what he gave to us was due to spiritual inspiration, that he saw it all in a moment of insight. Sir John believed in the rational mind. He was a meticulous, diligent thinker, but he was also open to the idea that we have a spiritual mind that connects us with this larger divine mind, and that we can, in moments of creativity, connect with that divine mind and ultimate knowledge. And he believed also in non-local mind. He believed that mind is not just the product of material, of brain cells, of biology, but rather mind has a deeper reality, and in every respect, it is truly a divine gift. So there's a spiritual side and a rational side.
Okay. Now, it's interesting because as I was talking to a few friends about John Templeton, one of the friends mentioned to me, like, how was it that Sir John was able to live in a world that was so materialistic? I mean, his professional engagement on investing, financing, etc. How was he able to transcend everything and keep himself focused on these very important issues and not getting lost in the material transactions? How do you think he succeeded in that regard?
Sir John was never materialistic. You know, he first of all, he believed in the power of love, and he treated everybody he ever knew in Wall Street or who invested in the Templeton funds with great love. His son Jack says that Sir John would hold meetings of the investors in his funds, and he would tell them, if you're investing on the margins, meaning borrowing money that you don't have to invest, please divest. He was always talking about the incredible importance of total honesty in the investment world, and he would travel. I knew a family in Ohio, in Hudson, Ohio, where the dad had some issues with alcoholism, and Sir John actually came out to that town in Hudson to spend a few days with this individual, getting him straightened out. And the family still remembers Sir John to this day for the help that he gave their father, who turned out to be a very successful man and started his own foundation. But people felt that Sir John was even though he was in the business world, he was an agent of love, and he always began his meetings with his investors with a prayer. He always began meetings with a prayer.
Oh, wow.
So this man worked hard to integrate his spirituality into the business world. And people say, well, he was, where did it come from? I mean, how did he stay as honest and pure as he was? Well, it wasn't just because of, quote unquote, some ethical belief. It was because he really believed that underneath it all, love is the only reality.
It's amazing. Only only other concepts would make us understand. It's unbelievable because for many people in the world, they feel like either they live a spiritual life or material life. And John Templeton is, would he be for you, since you met him and you had a friendship, that he would be an example on how we could live in the material world and keep ourselves true to our essence?
Oh, I think so. And of course, he did in about 1985, I believe, sell his Templeton funds. They became the Franklin Templeton funds as they're known today. But he devoted all of his resources to a foundation that would focus on progress in spirituality. Now, the thing that I'm glad about is that I've been able to capture the spiritual side of Sir John in this book, is Ultimate Reality, Unlimited Love, because it's so easy for people to forget that side of Sir John. It's a materialistic world, Vanessa. I mean, all of your listeners, they know that. It's a pretty materialistic world. And
yes,
it's kind of hard, isn't it, for the everyday listener, the everyday person, to get their mind wrapped around the possibility that in the end, everything, even this chair that I'm sitting on, everything can just be really an expression of divine love energy, and that our minds have that energy within them in a very special way, and we call that the spiritual mind. I mean, for a lot of people, these ideas are kind of outside the pale, and yet on the other hand, I have to say that if you're just walking down a street in a cosmopolitan city like Washington or New York or Boston or San Francisco or Chicago, this idea that there is consciousness and mind first before there is anything else, this is music to the ears of every Sufi Muslim. It's music to the ears of every Coptic Christian. It's music to the ears of every Kabbalistic Jew. It's music to the ears of every Hindu who reads the Vedic scriptures, or Mahatma Gandhi would have agreed with it. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi believed that love wasn't just a way of living in a harmless and a loving fashion, but it was ultimately the energy underlying the universe. And Buddhism has these ideas. And so, in your own tradition, the Kardec tradition has this in it very deeply. And so this is, it's, on the one hand, it sounds a little strange and hard to grasp, but on the other hand, it is the way people live their lives actually in everyday spiritual existence.
Oh, wow. Dr. Post, we have to give a short break, but when we come back, we'd like to talk about the power of love affirmations in everyday life, okay?
Yes.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, Andre Louise emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want Spiritus books for your children? At Edicei of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book Our Father, in which the spirit Mei Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelison Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.eddiesaveamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here with Dr. Stephen Post talking about his latest book, his Ultimate Reality, Unlimited Love. Dr. Post is a public speaker on topics including the health benefits of volunteerism, the spirit of philanthropy, and compassion in healthcare. He's the best-selling author who has taught at the University of Chicago Medical School, Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, and Stony Brook University of School of Medicine. And he is the founding director of the Center for Medical Humanities, Compassionate Care, and Bioethics. He also is the founder of the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, something that really has been changing a lot the way we think about life, love, our relationships. Dr. Post, when we talk about relationships in general, as we are here mentioning John Templeton's mind on the unlimited love, you have a chapter on your book talking about a disciplined, rational mind and the power of love affirmations in everyday life. So you're addressing the issue in a very practical way. Can you share a little bit with the listener about these affirmations and how we can actually put it in practice?
I can, yes. This is the power of the rational mind. In psychology, they call this priming. Priming. If you look at many spiritual traditions, Buddhism would be an example, but many aspects of Christianity and all traditions, the short, brief affirmation makes a big impact on daily living. So I was saying earlier, for example, an attitude of gratitude brings blessings, or just something like love your enemies as you love yourself. A brief statement that you meditate on, that you visualize, that you even go into detail with and attach some emotion, some feeling to. If you just dwell on that in your mind for a few minutes at the beginning of the day, or perhaps during the busyness of the day, if you can get a little time away, that can actually affect your behavior and change it somewhat in the realm of about 15 to 20%. So you're not reacting to the world around you and all the crazy stuff that's going on, all of the wacky things that people might be saying or doing, but you're more of an internal, what they call locus of control, because you've you've already, if you will, primed yourself or filled yourself with this kind of an affirmation. It's very effective, and I do it. So when I get up in the morning, I know pretty much who I'm going to be seeing, which is typically a lot of people, and I imagine what they need. Some people need a little forgiveness, some need some, I call it carefrontation, some need some compassion, some need a little creative boost, some just need a little attentive listening. But I ask myself what I think people need, and I do use brief affirmations and visualize a touch, and then over the course of the day I tend to be able to handle situations much more effectively. So that's really key. And now, if you're in the mystical side, as the Kardec tradition is, it's really good to do this just when you get up in the morning, because when you get up in the morning, you're free of time. You're not caught up in the crazy race from point A to point C. You're kind of living more in the now, and that's the place where the divine lives. The divine consciousness precedes all time and space, and so if you're focusing in on the now, and if you're making these affirmations, then you're connecting also with divine mind, and maybe, just maybe, I'm only speculating, but maybe it helps you along, especially when things get tough.
That's quite interesting, and certainly very practical as well. Now, in this, in the practicality of, you mentioned briefly before the break that the implications of this research, of the studies on unlimited love, are such that they can promote greater unity, harmony amongst human beings, and something that we need a lot, which is ending religious conflict. Would you like to elaborate a little more about the importance of achieving it?
Yeah, well, Sir John, I'd love to. Sir John was a very practical guy. And he knew that a key obstacle to world progress was religious violence. In fact, he was writing about religious violence very deeply in the 1990s. Still there? Whoop.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay, I thought I'd lost you. He was very worried about religious violence. He was writing about pure unlimited love and about how religions need to become humble, realize how little they know, focus on their deepest internal concepts and practices of pure unlimited love for shared humanity and for nature, not just for the nearest and the dearest, or people who believe like I do. He really was worried about this, and so when 9/11 came along, he was anything but surprised. But the whole upshot of his humility and theology, and I think one of the major reasons why he developed it so creatively, was because he wanted us to move away from religious conflict. He knew that many very smart, thoughtful people just hate the idea of religion and even spirituality because they associate it with arrogance and conflict and violence. So he thought that if we could do away with the violence, if we could bring spiritual truths into conversation with really high-end science, that maybe we could re-engage people with these deep spiritual perennial truths, and that would help the human future.
Which is so important. Nowadays, as you said, we still suffer in the world of this religious violence, the conflicts that are generated by different mindsets. But in a way, it's the human nature that still needs to develop. And when we talk about the development of the human nature, do you also understand or believe that through these studies there is evidence that human nature is evolving, and evolving not only organically speaking, but mind-wise Is it changing? Is there hope that the mind of humans is progressing to greater understanding, more solidarity, compassion, etc.?
I'm somewhat optimistic, but like Sir John Templeton, I'm very realistic about human nature because I read the newspapers too, like everybody listening, and I'm constantly shocked by what people do to other human beings. It's astonishing and horrifying. The bottom line is that human nature on its own is not a pretty thing. And I do believe in spiritual progress, but I believe that it really has to occur at the interface of our human nature and our human mind with divine consciousness. That progress really needs to be spiritual in nature, and that when we make that connection with divine consciousness and when we become aware of it, then we have the potential to really reach new levels of love, of justice, of equality, of dignity. But it's got to come from a spiritual illumination, and it's not just going to come from matter, material, brain cells, and biochemistry.
Let the scientists know. No,
right.
It's interesting you're saying this because thinking about where the root of so many problems nowadays, for example, as we see these massacres in colleges, schools, and we get to know the behind the scenes of these teenagers who were feeling like this lack of love. They couldn't feel love, and they reacted. I don't know if that's the way to put it together, in that very tragic way. And then, as a mother, I had to make choices also to raise my child and say, what do I prefer, my career, raising my kid, or, as somebody told me, Vanessa, would you give your car for somebody to drive? And I said, maybe my husband, but I'm not sure if I would give to anybody. So why would you give your child for somebody else to take care of? And I found it fascinating because many people, they are raised by somebody else, and parents are so focused on career and on something else that these children are being raised. I don't know. I'm not saying anything against babysitting or etc., but I'm questioning here, as John Templeton said, if every human being does not express love, he is abnormal. So where does that come from? Is it something that we experience in our childhood and now, you know what I mean? So in these discussions with John Templeton, where do you think what is the root cause of this lack of love?
Oh, it's a great issue. I mean, the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love asked 7 questions, all of which were questions that Sir John asked. Does it benefit us as givers when we are generous and loving, with regard to health and happiness and even longevity? Another one, second one, does love heal? Something you referred to earlier. Does love heal people's lives? Mm-hmm. And the third question is, how do you raise a caring, loving child? Mm. And then, then the questions, do people experience unlimited love as a divine reality? How does it change their lives? And so forth. But at the basic level, it's pretty easy, so long as you're okay medically, to conceive a child. Vanessa, I'm not saying that giving birth is easy. Okay. I'm sure it can be very difficult. Yeah. I haven't done it, obviously, but I know you have. Uh-huh. So, conceiving a child, bringing a child into the world biologically is one thing, but the big question that we don't focus on in our society, I'm afraid, is how to raise a truly loving child. We don't study it. I mean, we do know that the early years are important. We know that having a mother and or a father available and attentive and responding emotionally to the young toddler makes a big difference. It allows the toddler to achieve attachment and security and to explore the world and to become creative. And if you look at these studies about kids who were, investigated early in life, and then you ask their peers 20 years later, the ones who had this kind of secure family environment are described being capable of more lasting friendships and as being more caring. So there are buttons you can push. Having the right non-parent mentor is a very good predictor of being a caring adult. If you're in high school and you just get lucky and you run into that one person who just kind of helps you and gives you a good role model for living a caring, loving life, that makes a difference. But absolutely. So right now we're raising our kids with computers. I mean, they're basically, from the time they're knee-high to a grasshopper, they're in front of these video games, some of which are very violent, and the science is absolutely clear that the violent video games affect behavior in hurtful ways. So we know this is going on, and I think that we really need to recreate community. We need to recognize the importance of direct parenting, and we need to try to create an economic structure that allows this to happen. But I'm very concerned about these young people I read about, and it turns out, whether they're up in Connecticut or whether they're in Colorado or whether they're in Santa Barbara, California, typically, they've kind of been raised with a lot of technology, and they're not really learning the art of love. They're not learning how to control themselves, how to interact with emotional and social intelligence. They're being raised by these computer technologies.
But Dr. Post, going deeper in this issue, I observed that, you talked about emotions, and I observed that people rarely have, they are educated on emotions. People are not raised to, nobody goes to school to talk about emotions, even the names of emotions. I came across a dictionary of 150 emotions that a psychologist put together in California, and she put together card decks about these emotion and games so people can play and be more familiar with it. So they talk about the fact that once you identify the emotion, you can manage it. But, do we raise our kids that way? Because parents barely know about their emotions. And being a parent myself, I understand that you cannot give what you don't have. And when you talked about the labor, I tell you, the trickiest thing was to go through pregnancy, which was very serene, but the world around is so anxious that sometimes you barely have time to allow nature to speak by itself. Even when we were at the last week of our pregnancy, I remember people texting me, Facebooking, and Vanessa, when is she going to come? I said, can we let nature take its time and come when she needs to come? I don't know. When she comes, I will let everybody know. But I know many people who actually plan the day of their labor beforehand through C-sections, etc., because they don't want to wait, because they are busy in their lives. I remember how many things I had to shift around to accommodate and to wait on the very moment that we wanted to be very natural for baby Virginia. But in our real world, it's very difficult. And I kept wondering, Dr. Post, if the core problems of lack of love are not right there, where women decide not to breastfeed when they could breastfeed. Many people came to me like, you're going to breastfeed? That's a lot of work. Yes, baby Virginia is 7 months, and thank God I still breastfeed her. I had to make choices. My life is totally changed. But what else is important, is more important than that? To have that establishment of love and that connection. I think about personal responsibility as well, but I don't think even women themselves, and I say this because I am a woman and I came across several of them who really don't care. Many of them said, no, it's a lot of work. I'm not going to breastfeed. It's too much of sacrifice for me. So then I wonder if what's happening in regards to lack of love is not coming from the very beginning. And as a scientist, I studied the critical window of vulnerability, the very first years of life, and we can tell that that has a great impact later in adulthood. What are your thoughts in that regard?
Well, I agree with you. I think that tender, loving care, emotional presence, the physiology of breastfeeding, all of that creates the attachment, the connectivity. It allows for the neurological as well as the emotional development of the infant. So this is very important. And I would also have to say that a lot of spirituality, Vanessa, has to do with how we relate to time. You know, the theologians distinguish God's time, kairos, in the moment, now, with chronos, or chronological time, me doing a New York strut, running frantically from point A to point B to point C. When I'm letting time and the pressures of time determine my heart and my mind and my spirit, then I'm not really in the space of the divine. So that's why people, when they meditate, when they contemplate, when they pray, they have to kind of breathe deep, relax, focus on the moment, get the past and the future out of their minds, and just come into the present. And when they come into the present, they're coming into divine time. They're coming into God's time, because God is beyond time. So that's really crucial. And I think what happens in today's world is that people are under so much pressure and so much stress that they don't step back and come into the present and do the things that are really important in life. And so I commend you for making the kinds of decisions that you've made.
Thank you, Dr. Post. And I share this because scientifically, we've come across so much research talking about how the first years of life can impact later on, that I kept wondering again and again how much what we're doing to our kids are actually producing what we're seeing around the world. So I think parenting is a social responsibility. It's not only personal. It's social responsibility, because for the time being, the child is our responsibility. But later, the byproduct of how we raise this kid is going to impact the world in some way. So, right?
Oh yeah, and you think about my heart goes out to the parents of some of these young people who commit these incredibly violent crimes on campuses and so forth. Those parents are in tears, and I'm sure they're asking themselves, like we all have to. I mean, everybody asks this question. I have 2 kids, and I look back and I have to acknowledge that I probably wish I'd spent a little more time with my kids than I did. I wish I had maybe handled some situations, responded to some situations a little more creatively than I did. I mean, none of us are perfect parents, but parenting is really, really important, and we need to take it seriously, and we need to be studying it and practicing it. I mean, one of the things I have to say about the old Catholic Church is that they had classes and they trained individuals who were planning on getting married on what it would mean to be a responsible mother and father. You know, nobody's doing that now. Nobody does that now. You know, and I think it's a real spiritual issue that we need to get back to.
Exactly, the core of life, which is in the family, for sure. And I agree with you. None of us are perfect, but what is important is to thrive, to achieve, you know, love, as you're talking about. And allow me to share with you, Dr. Post, of all the passages in your book, there is one that is very, very special to me, and I would like to quote so you can tell us a little more if possible. It's on page 163. It says, when the great spiritual and mystical thinkers ponder the experience of God, they often speak of an eternal being of light, bright, gentle, filled with love, and awesomely powerful. They speak of being absorbed in this light of love and of being transformed in a way that brings a special sense of joy and makes possible a deeper love of neighbor and nature. This absorption in love and joy is almost childlike, a feeling that God's sole desire in creation is to see me joyful in the exuberance and peace of God's love. When you talk about love and joy, the combination, and I say this because for those of us who understand Jesus Christ as the guide and model here in Spiritism, Kardec mentions this in the Spirit's book, the combination of love and joy brings us back to when Jesus brought us the good news. And I remember one quote from one of the books we read in Spiritism Jesus saying to one of his disciples, Bartholomew, Bartholomew, have you heard of good news that don't bring joy? So the message, the core message of love and joy.
Yeah.
That can be quite transformative, right?
Oh yeah, and I think joy is the word. You know, St. Paul used the word joy. I think that joy is deeper than happiness.
How so?
I think that when people talk about happiness, you know, maybe that's their disposition, maybe it's environmentally determined, but joy in the spiritual sense comes from a relationship with the divine and being a channel of divine love. And I think that hope is deeper than optimism. Optimism, like happiness, you know, a lot of it is genetically predetermined, and some people are a little more optimistic than others, but hope is much deeper. It has to do with going through the trials and challenges and valleys of life, and yet having faith in an underlying ultimate reality and unlimited love that is there, and accepting no matter what the circumstances. So joy and hope are linked to this divine love, and they're different and deeper and more powerful and more reliable than just a little bit of happiness, you know, which could depend on whether I get a new pair of designer jeans, you know, or a little bit of optimism depending on whether I got my favorite cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, there's a depth to the connection between true love and true hope and true joy.
Amazing. Dr. Post, I want to mention to you that several listeners have emailed to us. I collapsed some of the questions into my own questions, but there is one very special comment by a listener who is in Baltimore, Maryland, Abby Scher. She was actually at the event, and she says his talk in March was inspiring, and she started volunteering through NAMI on the psychiatric ward at the University of Maryland Medical School. It's very intense, and my intention is to bring hope because there are lots of suicide attempts. So this is Abby sharing with us that you really inspired her to start this beautiful volunteering opportunity in her life. And Dr. Post, I know we would like to know much, much more about this ultimate love as the ultimate reality. What would you like to share as your final comments today for the listener at Kardec Radio?
Well, thanks, Abby, for emailing in. It means a lot to me to know that you're doing that volunteering, and I really am smiling and wishing you the best with it. Way to go. Vanessa, it's always such a delight to speak with you. But I also want to say that I think there's a lot to movement. I'm not a Spiritist member, but I know the heart and soul of your membership from having encountered you at various occasions, and I just think you need to go ahead and have absolute courage, because there will come a time when this notion that spirit is the core reality, that spirit is divine mind, that it has this incredible, radiant, creative love that brings energy into our own lives and into the whole universe, that those kinds of ideas, which sound a little crazy to a lot of people, I think if you give it time, people are increasingly going to say, that makes pretty good sense. And is ultimate reality unlimited love? ? If you want to read, I wrote that book out of love, Vanessa. I didn't write it because, like I said, I needed to write another book. I've written lots of other books. I wrote this because a really great human being needed somebody to faithfully represent and try to carry forward his core question, and not water it down, not turn it into biology or turn it into nanotechnology or whatever, but really the core question about the human spirit.
You're right. And we are very grateful to you that you shared this beautiful book. I can tell when I pick up the book, I can feel the molecules of love, because it's not only the theme, but I can feel the intention when you wrote it, and it's very easy reading in a way for those who are into the topic. It's very, very interesting, intriguing at times. It's fascinating, and it answers some questions, raises other questions, and makes us feel like we want more. So thank you so much, Dr. Post, for once again bringing light to the world. Thank you very, very much for being with us today, too.
Well, you're welcome, Vanessa, as always. Thank
you. Thank you. So, dear listener, here is another opportunity for you. If you have Facebook, Dr. Post has the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love there. You just go to facebook.com and the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. If you like the page, it's very interesting because you're going to keep receiving the news, and there's a lot to know from the Institute. A lot of good things are happening there. And if you want to read the book, just go to the StephenGPost.com website. His latest book, the previous books, the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love has its own website, unlimitedloveinstitute.org. Also for you to keep yourself updated on the latest news on the most important questions in life, because love is all that is, as one of the spirit mentors said once. This and much, much more. We're going to give a very short break, one last break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up, and we're going to invite you for our final prayer. Prayer are actions of love, and we are inviting you to join us at this very moment.
We will return to our program after these messages. Want to learn more about the ins and outs of mediumship? The book In the Realms of Mediumship by the spirit doctor Andre Luiz through the medium Chico Xavier analyzes the various aspects of mediumistic communication and mediumship. He also praises the efforts of mediums who are faithful to the spiritual mandate they received before they reincarnated, warning them about the risks of badly practiced exchanges between the two worlds. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Study Spiritism online at eSpiritism. eSpiritism is an online tool to promote the study and practice of Spiritism while contributing to the preparation of Spiritist practitioners. For full access to courses, go to www.e-spiritism.org.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Emmanuel's Novels. The reputable mentor, Emmanuel, wrote a 5-book series of Spiritist novels that can truly transform your life. Starting with 2,000 Years Ago, Emmanuel delights our minds with the true account of characters that are so similar to each of us. Discover yourself in Emmanuel's novels and live better. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com. And now we return to our program.
This idea of God, this ultimate reality of unlimited love, gives us joy, inner peace, healing, and purpose, and sustains every aspect of the matter and energy that constitute the universe and our very selves. Such a God is not far away. This ultimate reality is immanent or manifest in and encompassing the material world, in contrast to theories of transcendence, where God is seen to be outside the material world rather than permeating it. These are the words of Dr. Stephen Post on his latest book, Is Ultimate Reality Unlimited Love? This book you can find at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, anywhere. His website, StephenGPost.com, or the very website of the Unlimited Institute Research on Unlimited Institute website as well. These are ideas that shall be brought forth to humanity. It shall solve all the problems we have in the world. As we rescue the teachings of Jesus in Spiritism, we get to know that the essence of life is love, and that's what John Templeton also had in his heart, that God permeates everything, as reported by Dr. Post. Dear listener, we are very grateful for the opportunity we had to talk to Dr. Post and to learn so much. So let us pray now. We're going to dedicate this very prayer to all those in the world who are feeling the lack of love. May this prayer reach out to each one of them so they can heal their hearts and be full again. Dear Mother, Father God, we can feel your presence in each and every heartbeat, at each breath, in each and every movement of life. Were it not for you, we wouldn't even exist. Thank you for creating and sustaining our lives. And as you made us co-creators of your universe, we now would like to dedicate the life you give us, the love that sustains us, to those brothers and sisters of ours in humanity on the earth who are feeling the lack of love. May they be showered at this very moment by your magnificent love. We know you are always sustaining them of love, but probably they are not perceiving. What we would like to do is to partake in your creation, co-create with you a different reality for them. May they feel drops of love filling themselves, awakening their own loving nature so they can feel replenished and whole. We also would like to ask you to bless Dr. Post and his team for the beautiful work that they do. May all the men and women of science who are truly dedicated to the advancements of thought on the earth find new strength, courage, and hope, benefiting everyone on the earth with the findings that they bring forth. And so be it. Dear listener, we are very joyful with the opportunity we had here to pray together, to talk to Dr. Post, to learn so much, and also to renew our hopes. In a week from today, we're going to talk to Dr. Sonia Doi, who is the president of the United States Spiritist Medical Association. She's going to be here with us talking about the organization, what they've been doing, and the meeting that they're organizing, something that is going to happen in the second semester of this very year. There is much, much more Kardec Radio. And don't forget, tomorrow we have Spiritist Awareness at 8 p.m. with several hosts that are located in several countries around the world. And on Wednesdays, Got a Home with Francisca Kranz in Sydney, Australia, with Mackenzie Mel in Massachusetts. And we also have on Thursdays, Daniel Santos, the director, founder of the Spiritist Network, sharing with us another Spiritist talk on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. In the meantime, we hope you keep feeling the blessings of God wherever you are. Many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.